I stood there, in our kitchen, the one I designed with my own two hands. And I felt it, the sting, the weight. It wasn't just the tile I'd spent hours picking out, or the cabinets I'd meticulously painted. It was everything, the life I'd built, the sacrifices I'd made. For years, I'd put my dreams aside to support Emily. It was my role, the steady provider. It was my role, I thought, the steady provider, always. She was the one with the big career ambitions, so I'd been okay with being the one who picked up extra shifts, who put off any notion of pursuing my own passions. But then she got the promotion, the one that was supposed to be a victory for both of us. We were supposed to celebrate, right? Instead, in front of everyone, family, friends, the people who had been cheering her on, Emily casually dropped it. "From now on," she said, barely making eye contact with me, "we're splitting everything, separate accounts." I stood there, trying to breathe, trying not to explode. She didn't even look at me as she spoke, like this was some corporate strategy, not the heart of our marriage. As if I hadn't been the one carrying us for years. And then, right there, in front of all our friends and family, she turned to me and, without any real warmth, said, "You've always been so quiet about your finances. It's time we fix that." I agreed to the separate accounts, even though it felt like a final betrayal. It hit me then. This moment, this announcement, was the culmination of everything. The years I'd spent giving, sacrificing, being the dependable one, and Emily never once even questioning how little she gave back. I'd been holding this marriage up, and for what? I pulled out my phone. I started downloading bank statements, organizing receipts. No more pretending, no more swallowing my feelings. I was going to face the truth. I needed to know how much I had really contributed, what this had all been worth. The numbers didn't lie, and this time, they weren't going to be ignored. I spent the next few hours digging through our finances, scrolling through bank statements, credit card bills, and household expenses. It wasn't easy, but I had to know. I started with the basics: mortgage, utilities, groceries, things I'd been paying for all these years. Always. Emily, with her busy job, had somehow never had the time to deal with any of it. It had always fallen to me to keep track, to make sure we were covered. But as I started pulling the numbers together, things got heavier. The weight of it started to sink in. The truth was glaring at me now. I'd paid for almost everything. The mortgage, utilities, car payments, groceries. Hell, even the cable bill. And Emily, she'd put in a fraction. Less than a fraction. I kept scrolling, clicking, adding things up in my head, trying to stay calm, trying not to feel like a damn fool. I pulled out a blank spreadsheet and started plugging numbers in, line by line. Over the last 6 years, I'd contributed over $330,000. I was drowning in it. Every line felt like a punch in the gut. Emily, less than $50,000. She'd put in less than 1/6 of what I had, and I'd been carrying the weight like it was nothing. She'd been so caught up in her career, so focused on her promotion and her success, that I just kept doing everything. It had always felt like my responsibility, my duty, and the worst part, neither she nor anyone else had ever noticed. Not really. It was always about how hard Emily worked, about how much she deserved this promotion. But no one, especially her, ever saw the price I was paying. No one ever looked at the balance, the way I was keeping us afloat while she got to chase her career. I was invisible. It wasn't even anger that hit me, though. Not at first. It was this resignation. Like all the years of pretending it was fine, of telling myself it was just what I was supposed to do. All of it had been a lie. Maybe I had lied to myself more than anyone else. I'd convinced myself that providing was all I needed to do, that my sacrifices were just part of being a husband, a man. But the truth was clear now. I sat back in the chair, staring at the screen, the numbers, the little boxes of data I had painstakingly filled in. The evidence was in front of me. I'd been carrying this burden for years, but now I could choose to drop it. The first thing I did was stop cooking her dinner. It wasn't some grand declaration, I just stopped. I didn't make the usual pot roast on Sundays, or the stir-fry she liked after a long work day. At first, Emily didn't notice. She was wrapped up in her world, her promotion, her new role. But after a couple of days, she started to get frustrated. I'd hear her clinking around in the kitchen late at night, reheating leftovers or ordering takeout. She'd glance at me while I sat on the couch, reading or scrolling through my phone, and give this little sigh, loud enough for me to hear, but not enough to start a fight. It was like she was testing me, waiting for me to ask if she needed help. But I didn't bite. I didn't say a word. Then came the texts. She sent one late in the afternoon, after work, her usual passive-aggressive tone creeping in. I see you're sticking to the separate finances rule. Guess I'm on my own now, huh? Another came the next day. I'm not sure how we're going to make this work if you're not contributing. I guess we'll see. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. I just went on with my day, doing whatever I wanted. No rushing to get the laundry done. No diving into the dishes. Nothing. If she was waiting for me to feel guilty, it wasn't going to happen. That Saturday, I canceled the dinner party I'd been planning for months. It was supposed to be a big dinner party to celebrate her success, but I wasn't in the mood, so I texted my friends, "Hey, not the right time for a party. Let's reschedule." Emily didn't even ask why. She just huffed, turned on her heel, and stormed off to her office. She was angry, but she didn't know how to argue with me anymore. That's the thing. She was used to me being the one to make everything work, to handle the details, the hosting, the planning. But now I wasn't. Her frustration was evident, but I didn't flinch. And that's when I realized something. What I was doing, just stepping back, holding my ground, it didn't feel like revenge. It didn't even feel like a punishment. It felt freeing. I couldn't keep pretending anymore. I had to say it. The distance between us had grown too wide, and I was done ignoring it. Emily was sitting at the kitchen table, her laptop open, tapping away at something for work. It was late, and she was still in her corporate manager mode, distracted, focused, unaware. I leaned against the doorframe and watched her for a moment. She didn't even notice me standing there. "Emily," I said, my voice calm, almost too calm. She looked up, surprised. "What is it, Jim?" I walked over and set the laptop aside. I didn't want any distractions. I reached into my bag and pulled out the spreadsheet, the one I'd spent hours putting together. "Here," I said, sliding it across the table. "This is how much I've contributed, how much you haven't." She glanced at the screen, her face changing from confusion to annoyance. "What is this?" I sat down across from her. "I've been carrying most of the financial load, Emily. You've put in less than $50,000 in 6 years, while I've put in over $330,000. I'm done pretending like it's okay." Her eyes flickered with surprise, but she quickly masked it with defensiveness. "That's ridiculous. You know I've been working hard. My promotion is proof of that. I'm building my career, Jim. I don't have time for all the small stuff." "Small stuff?" I leaned forward, my anger starting to rise. "The small stuff is what's kept us afloat all these years. You think your promotion gives you a free pass to ignore everything I've been doing? I've been the one paying for everything, covering all the bills. You've been too busy building your career to notice." Emily's face hardened. "You don't get it, do you? I'm working to build something for us, for our future. I've been doing my part. Your part?" I repeated, the words tasting bitter on my tongue. "You've been building your future while I've been holding us up. And now you're acting like I should be grateful." The silence in the room grew thick, charged. Emily opened her mouth, ready to argue, but I cut her off. "You don't get it. All these years, I've worked myself to the bone, tried to make everything perfect for you, for us. And where were you? Where was your sacrifice?" She shot up from her chair, her voice rising. "I'm not responsible for you feeling invisible. I didn't ask you to do everything, Jim. You chose that. You've never supported my dreams, my career." "I've supported your career by putting mine on hold," I shouted, the frustration I'd kept buried boiling over. "I've put myself last, kept my head down, because that's what you wanted, and now you have the nerve to tell me I haven't supported you? Look around. Everything we have, everything, is because I made it happen while you were climbing the corporate ladder." She looked at me, her eyes wide, but she didn't say anything. She didn't have anything left to say, and that's when it hit me. This was the turning point. It wasn't just about our marriage anymore. It was about me. For the first time, I wasn't scared to say what I needed. I wasn't scared to be seen. I stood up slowly, my heart pounding, but I wasn't shaking anymore. "This marriage isn't serving me anymore. I've spent so long being your invisible support system that I forgot who I was. I can't do this anymore." Her mouth opened, but she didn't speak. She just stared at me like I'd ripped the floor out from under her. After the confrontation, everything felt different. I didn't feel like I was carrying a 1,000-pound weight on my back anymore, but that didn't mean things were resolved. Far from it. Emily was still in the house, still doing the same things, going through the motions, cooking when she felt like it, cleaning up without much care. But there was something about her now, a coldness, a distance. I set up my own bank accounts, separate from hers, and it felt like a small victory every time I paid a bill without her name on it. I started living like I actually mattered. I wasn't in the kitchen every night, managing every meal. I didn't make sure all the lights were turned off, or that the laundry was sorted by the weekend. Instead, I spent time doing things I hadn't in years, going to the gym, taking walks, reading books I'd always meant to get to, but never had the time for. I was reclaiming parts of myself that had been lost, buried under a mountain of responsibilities I hadn't asked for. A few weeks later, my phone buzzed while I was at the gym. It was Mike, my old friend from college. He'd been on the receiving end of a lot of my venting over the years, but this time, it was different. "Hey man," Mike said, "I've been meaning to tell you, you're different lately. You've been quieter, but it's like you're more focused, like you actually care about yourself now." I wasn't expecting that, not from him, but he was right. There was something about the way I'd been living, something that felt like the fog had cleared. A few days later, Emily Venmo'd me for half the utilities. I stared at the request for a minute, unsure of how I felt. In the past, I would have been pissed, resentful. She'd been taking advantage of me for so long. Why should I pay for her share? But this time, I didn't feel that tight knot in my stomach. I looked at the request, and for the first time, it felt fair. She was paying her part. It was her turn. I paid it without hesitation, and I didn't feel anything but relief. No guilt, no anger, just a quiet sense of balance that hadn't existed between us in years. I was moving forward, bit by bit, even though Emily didn't quite understand it. She'd make the occasional passive-aggressive comment, like when I didn't offer to cook dinner, or when I started taking longer walks instead of waiting around for her. She'd sigh loudly and give me these looks, like she was trying to figure out if I was mad at her or just indifferent. But I wasn't mad. I wasn't anything anymore. I was just myself. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel the weight of her expectations pulling me down. I wasn't her financial backup anymore. I wasn't her caretaker. I wasn't her second priority. And honestly, it felt good. Too good. Like maybe I could finally breathe without wondering how much more I could take. But I knew this wasn't the end. Emily wasn't done. She hadn't finished fighting for control, and I wasn't sure how far she'd go to try to drag me back into her world. But for now, I was free, and that freedom felt like something I hadn't realized I was starving for. It was a few months after the fight, and Emily's mother, Patricia, was coming to visit. I'd been bracing for it, knowing exactly what was coming. Patricia had always had this way of making me feel small, like I was somehow lucky to have Emily, and that I should be grateful for the life she gave me. She had this constant condescending tone, as if she was always judging the way I lived, the way I contributed, or didn't. I could already hear her saying something about how I needed to step up, do more, be better. But this time was different. I'd been through therapy, worked on myself, learned how to stop being a doormat. I wasn't the guy who just swallowed the bullshit anymore. And as soon as Patricia walked in, I could feel the familiar judgment, but I didn't flinch. I stood tall. As expected, the first words out of her mouth were loaded. "Jim," she said, as if I'd been waiting for her approval all this time, "I really think it's time you start stepping up. Emily has a lot on her plate, and you're her partner. She needs you to—" I interrupted her. "Patricia, I'm not here to be Emily's backup anymore. I'm not here to support her career while neglecting my own life." She froze, her mouth hanging open. I could see it, the way she wasn't used to me challenging her. To me, not just folding under her expectations. It was clear she was thrown off balance. For a second, I almost thought she was going to argue, but instead, she just shifted uncomfortably in her chair. "I'm just saying, you're lucky to have a wife like Emily," she muttered, almost as if trying to go back to the script she knew. I shook my head. I don't need to be lucky. I need to be seen. And for once, I'm choosing myself. Patricia's eyes narrowed, but she didn't argue. The conversation faded into awkward silence. For the first time in years, I wasn't just the guy who had to take whatever she threw at me. I was standing up for myself, not just in my marriage, but in my relationship with her. When it was time for her to leave, she surprised me. As she stood by the door, about to head out, she turned back to me, looking almost unsure of herself. "I guess you've become more independent," she said awkwardly. I don't know if I'm entirely happy about it, but I can see you're not the same. I didn't know what to say. I wasn't sure what kind of praise that was, but I wasn't going to argue. It was the first time anyone had acknowledged the change in me. For once, I wasn't invisible to the people who had always expected me to just stay in the background. As Patricia left, I stood there, feeling something settle inside me. It wasn't just that Emily didn't control me anymore. It was that no one did, not even her mother. And in that moment, I realized just how far I'd come. I wasn't the same man I'd been when I first met Emily, or when I first married her. I wasn't the man who had to hide his needs or swallow his feelings. 6 months had passed, and things were different now. I had changed. My life had changed. Emily's attempts at reconciliation were still there, lingering in little gestures, a text here and there, some forced conversations about us, but I'd stopped pretending that we could just pick up where we left off. I wasn't that person anymore, the one who would bend over backward, swallow my pride, and let my own needs fall behind hers. One evening, Emily asked me if we could talk. I wasn't sure what she expected, but I agreed. We sat down in the living room, the same place where we'd spent so many evenings trying to patch things up or avoid the tension between us. This time felt different, though. I could see it in her eyes. She wasn't just playing the part anymore. She was genuinely trying, but I wasn't sure it was enough. I've been thinking a lot about everything, she started, her voice quieter than usual. I realize now, I neglected your needs, Jim. I was so focused on my career, I didn't see what I was doing to you. I'm sorry. I've always taken you for granted, and I shouldn't have. You were always there, and I didn't appreciate that enough. I let her speak. I listened to every word, knowing that this apology was real, but knowing, too, that it wasn't enough to undo the years of sacrifice I'd made. She had taken me for granted, yes, but I had allowed it. I'd let her get away with it, because I thought that's what I was supposed to do. Support her dreams, make myself small, and just be there. I hear you, I said, my voice steady. And I get that. I really do. But Emily, I've changed. I'm not the same person who was willing to give everything up for you and for this marriage. I can't go back to being that guy. She looked at me, her eyes wide. Jim, I'm not asking you to go back. I'm asking for a chance to move forward, together. Can't we? No, I interrupted. I've thought about this. I've had months to think about it. And I've realized something. I've spent too long being invisible. I've spent too long putting my life on hold for a marriage that only worked when I was the one doing all the sacrificing. I can't keep doing that. It's not healthy for me. It's not fair to me. She looked like I'd slapped her. I didn't want to hurt her, but the truth was sharper than anything I could have said. I'm sorry, Emily, but I'm done. I can't live like this anymore. I need something more than what we have. I'm not going to stay in a marriage that cost me my sense of self. I've found a part of me I never thought I would again, and I'm not willing to give that up for anything. There was silence between us, thick with everything unspoken, everything that had led up to this moment. Emily was crying now, tears streaming down her face, but I wasn't moved by it. I wasn't cold, but I wasn't going to let her guilt me into staying. I couldn't. I think it's time we end this, I said quietly. I'm asking for a divorce. I stood up, looking at her for one last time. I wasn't walking away in defeat. I was walking away because I'd finally realized that the pain of divorce was far less than the emotional weight of staying invisible. I wasn't going to sacrifice myself anymore. Not for her, not for anyone.